Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. I want to begin by asking you a question, especially if you understand Mount Kenya politics. What is the mood in the mountain now that they are staring at the reality of their son being kicked out of a marriage that they so much invested? They invested emotionally, they even invested economically. They had a lot of hopes in this marriage. They were, chest thumping. And now it is almost a done deal that this marriage is breaking up, and the only person that can save this marriage is when William Ruto says, I forgive you, let us continue working, or if it ends up in a court of law and they decide to save Rigathi Gachagua. What is the mood? Because I have interacted with some of my friends. I've got very many friends from Mount Kenya who used to tell me how they were going to take power, who used to tell me how William Ruto was God sent. William Ruto had a plan for our economy. William Ruto was the best politician that we had ever witnessed from independence. But today, what I see, or what they are revealing to me, is that there is an environment of confusion and regret. They look at the decision that they made by supporting William Samoei Ruto, and they regret. They regret because they went into this marriage with clean hands, but now they feel that they are being betrayed. They regret because they were charged against their own son, Uhuru Kenyatta, and they continue to beg for forgiveness. They misused that opportunity when they took power, and they feel very bad. But then one would ask one question: were there any signs that they were getting into the wrong marriage? Or rather, were there any warnings? What they want? It is on record that Uhuru Kenyatta, having worked closely with his very friend, warned them that in his own very considered opinion, he felt that it was not the right time for Kipchirchir to become the president of the country. But they ignored that. But I want to play for you this clip that someone sent to me, because internet does not lie, of a person who, let me use this crude word, of a madman who warned Mount Kenya of the consequences that were to follow, because every choice has got consequences. You remember the famous quote, in whose hands will you be safe? Brother Francis Atwoli, a man who was and is still being considered as almost mad, was in one of the stations, and he was asking Mount Kenya, in whose hands will you be safe? Because in 2027, people are going for an election that is going to determine your future, that is going to determine how your economy is going to perform. Raila Amolo Odinga will be on the box, and William Ruto will be on the box. In whose hands will you be safe? And I want you to count how many times Atwoli is asking, in whose hands will you be safe?
92. Because literally he's a driver. He says, bwana, tulikuwa pamoja. Mimi Mungu amenijalia nimepata. Come and sit here. He says, wewe hukujipanga, wewe hukufa. You know, what do you think God is thinking of this person if he took over? And you people in Central Province, you must ask yourselves, in whose hands will you be safe? In whose hands will you be safe? In whose hands will you be safe? Don't come to me. I have no kiosk. Me, I'm a salary guy. Lawyers and people from Western Kenya, we are used to salaries, being cooks and watchmen. But you central people, in whose hands will you be served? Shenzi sana. That is the question. It's not a question of bottom up. It's not a question of wheelbarrows. It's not a question of hustler. Or it's not a question of who. Ask yourself, in whose hands, if elections was carried today and your TV, your radio tells William Samoei Ruto is the head, in whose hands will you be safe?
And what's wrong with that?
In whose hands will you be safe?
Where I come from, we are told that do not ignore a piece of advice as long as it is good, even if it is coming from a madman, from a drunkard, from someone that you're looking down on. Because the advice that you ignore today might be the one that you will need tomorrow. Surely, when you listen to Francis Atwoli, it was full of comics in it. But Atwoli was asking one question: in whose hands will you be safe after the elections? And I'm not discussing the character of Atwoli. I know they are now part and parcel of the government. Raila has joined hands. But the question that was asked then, in whose hands? Do you feel there is a regret? And the reason why I'm playing this clip is because today, many people are now crying. Many people are now lamenting and regretting, why did we get into this marriage? Others are even saying, how we wish. Do you know, Raila presented his card as an old buddy who was going to, if at all he took over, was only going to rule for one term, prepare a few things and there, and relinquish his position. And I'm not here to campaign for Raila. I just want us to remind of ourselves, because that is gone now and we are reaping the consequences. When we see our airport going in our very own eyes, when we see the mess in the education sector, when we see the corruption and wastage that we have, when we see our deputy president being humiliated and going home as if he never brought anything into this government, when we see our young men being abducted, when we see people being sodomized, when we see the pathetic situation, the economic and the political situation in the country, it behoves one to ask a question: where did the rain start beating us? And have we learned? That is the biggest question that I want to ask. Because we will still be presented with another opportunity in 2027. Today we are crying, we are lamenting, but an opportunity is coming for us. I saw people going to the streets. I saw some ODM members saying that William Ruto killed them and that there was innocent blood that was spilled. But when 5 members of the ODM leaders were incorporated into the government, that sanitized William Ruto. They forgot about the blood that was spilled. That is the same thing that is going to happen in 2027. If today William Ruto would come and say that Rigathi Gachagua is still my friend and I will still retain him as my deputy president, the Mount Kenya people will forget everything. If, for example, today you find yourself with only 2 devils that you have to choose from, Raila Amolo Odinga and William Samoei Ruto. From where I sit, I believe that all of these politicians should go home. Raila, Ruto, Rigathi Gachagua, Jeremiah Kioni, Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa, Martha Karua. I believe that we need some fresh blood. We need to inject some, young men there. But it's not about age, it's about integrity. We need to get someone who can, make some changes. But if by 2027, you realize that you find yourself with only two people, William Ruto and Raila Amolo Odinga, especially those who are coming from Mount Kenya. Who will you vote for? And this is why I'm saying that as long as we still play tribal and ethnic politics, we are headed nowhere. Someone said that a slave who does not realize that is a slave does not deserve to be helped. If today you've not emancipated yourself and your mind from the history that was sold to you, that a Kikuyu is bad, a Luo is bad, a Kalenjin is bad, if you are still going to stereotype people and you cannot vote for individuals, you are voting a community. When you see Ruto, you see a Kalenjin, and you think that all Kalenjins behave like Ruto. When you see a Luo, you believe all Luos behave like Raila, for example. You see Rigathi and you say all Kikuyus behave like. When you see an individual, you see their community. Then we have got no business even crying. Have we learned, ladies and gentlemen? Have the hustlers learned? They sang. Yeye ndiye anajua sijui vile mama mboga hustler. Yeye ndiye anajua sijui bodaboda hustler. Ni hustler. Do you still believe that William Ruto is a hustler? The chief hustler? Do you still believe that William Ruto is God sent because he used to go to church and he prays and he could solo some songs and he could give out some money? I'm asking a question because there is no business trying to cry out if we have not unchained ourselves from this political stupidity of worshipping our tribes. We cannot help our nation if today you are crying out that Rigathi is being persecuted in a government that you helped form. But if you are given an opportunity to vote someone else, as long as Raila is on the ballot, you will not. And I'm just using that as an example. Come 2027, the Gen Zs will produce a candidate, but Gen Zs alone cannot make it. The millennials and every Kenyan will rally behind a person that they will choose, because there will only be two forces, the forces of change and the forces of status quo. As long as you are still going to take money, you are going to be bribed, you are going to vote along tribal lines, you feel that once you've been given some ministerial positions, then it is over, then we are not going to change our country. Ladies and gentlemen, I played that clip because it reminds us of the events that took place. And the very, very events will take place. There will be warnings. If you ignore the warning, remember, you will still have to go for years with the same predicaments. There is a somber mood in Mount Kenya. Regrets, confusion, anxiety. They say their son is being crucified. But they had an alternative. Kenyans are crying, but we had an alternative. We listened to the lies and we were hoodwinked. The question is, have we learned?